The Central Unified School District Board of Trustees meeting is called to order at 6:03 for April 27th, 2021. Please take note that this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted, so if you do participate in today's meeting, it is likely that your likeness may be recorded. First item of business, attendance. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present. Adoption of the agenda. What are the wishes of the board on the agenda? I have a motion by Trustee Brooks. I have a second by Trustee Chan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda is approved. Our next item are comments from the public on closed session item. At this time, we will allow 30 seconds to pass in case we have any delays. If there is any member of the public wishing to address the board regarding any of the items listed under our closed session agenda, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. Once again, this is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board regarding any of the closed session items.
Okay, President Carrillo, we do not have any calls at this point.
Thank you. Hearing no calls, we will now move to our closed session. We will adjourn to closed session and return to our open session at 7 p.m. or as soon as thereafter. Thank you. mics are also louder. The board reconvenes to open session. Items to report from closed session. The certificated personnel report was approved. Motion by trustee Cervantes, a second by trustee Solis. Motion carried 7-0. Classified personnel report, also approved by a motion by trustee Chan, a second by trustee Brooks, and a 7-0 vote. That concludes our report out from closed session. Just a friendly reminder to any of our viewers, if you wish to address the board during our general public session or during any agenda item, please call when that item is called. We will take public comment as soon as administration completes presenting the item, and the number to call is 559-276-3150. And with that, we move on with our agenda, Pledge of Allegiance. If I can have Vice President Solis, please lead us. Thank you. Next, we will have presentations and reports. Our first item is student recognition, our Young Authors Fair. Assistant Superintendent Davis.
Thank you, President Carrillo. It is my pleasure this evening to share with you our Young Authors Fair recipients. Despite distance learning and COVID-19, we had 77 entries in our Young Authors Fair, Young Authors within Central Unified. Exemplary selection for class book category comes from Mrs. Hang's class at Polk Elementary, titled Hooray! Congratulations. Exemplary selection in the middle school poem or narrative category comes from Rio Vista Middle School, Despite Everything, written by Simon Sangira. These students' projects will be featured on the Young Author Fair's website on May 6th, and we'll be sure to share the link with you. I'd also like to note our honorable mention authors. In the K-8 illustrator category, Naomi Schaefer from Harvest Elementary is recognized for A Valentine Can Be. Honorable mention in the K-5 fiction category, David Guzman of Houghton Kearney for Fluffy the Ducky. Honorable mention in the K-5 class book category, we have a book written by Mrs. Arndt's class, The Things We Miss in 2020. And also a piece called The Amazing World of Bats, written by Jesus Batista from Tilley Elementary. Honorable mention in the K-5 nonfiction category, Bryson Yang from Tilley Elementary wrote Extinction, and honorable mentions for the middle school poem or narrative that were written by Victoria Espinosa, wrote Dear Writer, and Peyton Smith, who wrote Pandemic, both from El Capitan Middle School. We are very pleased with their activities, and as soon as we can get to the link, we will share their work with you. Congratulations to each and every one of them.
Thank you. Why don't we just give them a big round of applause? Thank you. Our next item is employee recognition, West Fresno Madera FFA San Joaquin Region Star. Assistant Superintendent Collegian.
Thank you, President Carrillo, Board of Trustees. We are incredibly proud to share that Mr. Paul Burrell, Assistant Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and Mr. Dave Holterman, Principal of Central High School, were both recognized by West Fresno Madera FFA for the San Joaquin Region Star Administration Award for their ongoing and remarkable support for agricultural education. Nominated for his recognition by Fresno Central FFA, Mr. Burrell received the Sectional Silver Award, and Mr. Holterman was named the regional winner. As a result of being recognized as the regional winner, Mr. Holterman's nomination moved forward to the state recognition level and has been selected as an FFA Star Administrator finalist. He is one of 6 in the state to receive this honor. Mr. Holterman will then participate in the final selection process later in May, concluding with the recognition of finalists and announcement of the winner during the State FFA Leadership Conference General Session on May 15th. We want to congratulate both Mr. Burrell and both Mr. Holterman for their outstanding accomplishments. Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you. We move on to employee association highlights. Do we have a representative from the Central Unified Teachers Association, either in person or via telephone? Great. So first we will hear from Central Unified Teachers Association.
Hello, Judy. Ms. Martinez, are you on? Can you hear us? Hello, Ms. Martinez? Hello, Ms. Martinez? Kyle? Okay, she's on. I don't see that you guys are tapped into the call.
Okay, so I do see, we can come back. Oh, maybe now.
Hello? Hello, Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
There you go. We can hear you. Can you hear us okay?
Yes. Am
Perfect.
I ready to go?
Yes, you are on with the board. Kyle, we just need her volume up just a tad.
Okay, Ms. Martinez, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, President Carrillo. Good evening, Board Trustees and Superintendent. I have to say, and I think you all know this, that all of our educators are extremely happy to be back. This was shared out in many ways during our last site rep meeting, as we had a lot of positives. First of all, the broadcasting team at Glacier Point, under the direction of Joshua Spooner, are creating some awesome videos for their students. Students and teachers broadcast about extracurricular activities, upcoming events, current movies, top 10 songs, this day in history, and even library news. Monday is called Staff Edition for the students to get to know their teachers. The teachers and students absolutely love them. And the comments from teachers were that they are excellent videos and that our students are doing such a great job. At Harvest, the Gate students made Easter egg goodie bags for their kindergarten students because they couldn't be on campus for the traditional egg hunt they do. They had eggs with candy and a little game in it. They handed them out drive-through style the Thursday before spring break. At our high schools, they had a welcome back walkthrough of the campus. Students picked up schedules, IDs. They got a tour of the campus. They were able to locate their classes, check out books, check out technology, meet with their counselors and admin. And best of all, they said they got Kona ice. Our Steinbeck Elementary staff wore t-shirts, some special t-shirts on their first day that said, "Cannot mask my excitement to see you." And River Bluff staff wore t-shirts that said, "Strong, no matter the distance." I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat that. Their t-shirt said, "River Bluff strong, no matter the distance." So I want to thank you, board members, for all you do, and our superintendents. It's been a wonderful 2 weeks. It's been very hectic for our teachers, as you know. Simultaneous teaching is not easy. And our educators have risen to the occasion, and they are doing amazing work. Thank you for our tech aides for all of their help. Thank you for the district tech staff. I know it's been difficult. Our teachers are exhausted, but they are doing a fantastic job, and our kiddos are also doing a fantastic job. So thank you all for the decisions, the positive decisions that you continue to make on behalf of our students and our staff. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, President Martinez.
Absolutely.
Next, we will hear from California School Employees Association, President Chacon. Good. Can you just make sure the mic is on?
There we go.
Yes.
Good evening, board members. Nice to see everybody. At this time, we are still in negotiations. We haven't really come to any type of anything yet, so that's what right now we're reporting. Other than that, we're kind of excited to have the kids back also. Just exciting. We'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And with that, we move on to our superintendent and board communications. And then the next item is comments from the public. So if there are any members of the public wishing to address the board during our public comment session, the number to call is 559-276-3150. Thank you. So with that, any updates, Superintendent Alvarado?
Yes, thank you, President Carrillo, members of the board and our community. Just before Mr. Chacon leaves, I do want to thank our CSEA employees and also our CUDA employees, administrators, and all of our employees throughout the district for the resiliency during this pandemic. I mean, they're the real superstars. And and again, as Mrs. Martinez just mentioned, our teachers are doing some remarkable work. I had the opportunity to walk every single campus over the last 2 weeks and visit some classrooms, and just being able to do the live streaming into the homes and also teaching the students that are showing up to class in person and doing that at the same time is just remarkable. So thank you all to all of our staff at CSEA, CUDA, administrators alike for their efforts. Last weekend, Central High School, the Family Career Community Leaders of America attended the 74th Annual California FCCLA State Leadership Conference virtually. Despite the challenges of this year, many Central High School students placed in the top 3 competitors in the state, and actually we featured their names and accomplishments on our Facebook page. I also do want to call out some of our advisors. The Central High School chapter was recognized for meeting the leadership goal and having over 200 members. That's 200 members in 2021. Advisor Alyssa Fight was awarded the Outstanding Advisor Gold Award. Both Alyssa Fight and Robin Butterfield were recognized for 5 years of service as the FCCLA advisors. Thanks to all of you who have already purchased the Home of Hope tickets. I already purchased my bundle, and every board member here has purchased tickets, so thank you very much. The community can still come to the district office, room 11, to purchase Home of Hope tickets for $100 each, or the $200 bundle of 2 tickets entered in the home drawing and 1 ticket for the Lexus drawing. I do want to announce that we have exceeded we shattered the record, actually. Ms. Dosi, do you recall how many we've actually sold to date? Wasn't it 300 and close to 350 or so?
Yes, and our minimum is to be, is that we're supposed to sell is 450.
So we're way ahead of schedule, and I just want to thank Ms. Dohi for all the work that she's done, and also my office staff, because if you're there today or any day, there's constant traffic coming in and out, purchasing tickets, and it's been that way for several weeks now. Here's the great news. You can name your child's elementary or middle school or high school co-curricular or athletic team, and they will directly receive 50% of your purchase. The other 50% goes to the Foundation for Central Schools, which pays for classroom and teacher grants, senior scholarships, and special events throughout the district that benefit students. This is a win-win for our students and our community, so we appreciate all your efforts, and let's do a final push to the finish line. This Saturday, the Janessa virtual auction, our virtual auction for the Janessa Ramirez Scholarship Fund begins. Auction items include mini vacations at Pismo Beach, Chukchansi, collector items, family outings, jewelry, braces, orthodontic braces, trips to Cabo and other resorts, just to name a few. Visit centralfoundation.org for more information and the link to the virtual auction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from any trustee? I just need to give a shout out to Principal Gunstream for Liddell. I don't know if any of you saw, and I've delayed in sending her an email or any communications, but they put together a video to welcome the students, which is really amazing and great. And I know if I was one of the elementary students, as an adult, I was very excited and looking forward to their return. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. It's great. So thank you to her and her team, and to all of our teachers and all of our staff for everything that you're doing for our students. So again, thank you. And with with that, we'll move on to our comments from the public. So at this time, if there is any member of the public in person or who is participating virtually who would like to provide any comment on any item not currently on the agenda, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. As a friendly reminder, because comments taken during this time are not agendized, the board cannot engage in any discussion. Depending on what your comment is, you may be directed to contact administration, but please understand, we're not ignoring you, we just are not authorized to provide any comment or discussion. So with that, do we have any comments from the public at this time?
President Carrillo, we do not at this moment, but we may need to take about 30 seconds.
Okay, so we will allow 30 seconds to pass before we move on to our next agenda item.
Okay, there are no calls at this time.
Great, thank you. Hearing no comment, we will move on with our agenda. Our next item is consent agenda. If there are no items to pull from the agenda, I do just want to highlight a couple of items before I ask the board what they wish to do with the agenda items. So there are two resolutions. Adopt resolution number 2021-38, declaring May 12, 2021 as California Day of the Teachers. Again, thank you to all of our teachers for all of their hard work. And we also have a second resolution, number 2021-39, declaring May 16th through the 22nd, recognizing our classified school employees during that week. So again, thank you to all of our staff, our classified and our teachers for all of your hard work. And so with that, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by trustee Solis. Is there a second? I have a second by trustee Brooks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, motion carries 7-0. We move on to our action items. Our first item is to hold a public hearing and approve April's quarterly Williams uniform complaint procedure. Do we want to have the hearing first and then the presentation? We take the presentation first, right?
There's no presentation,
There's
just
nothing,
a
but-
recommendation to hold the public hearing, and then we recommend approval of the report.
Great. So with that, we will now open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak during this open hearing?
We don't have any calls.
Since we don't have any comments, I will now close the public hearing, and we will now move on to approval of the quarterly report. So did we have any comments? Did you want to say anything? No?
Nope.
Okay. So with that, what are the wishes of the board on the approval of the April's quarterly Williams uniform complaint? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. I have a motion by trustee Cervantes. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by trustee Solis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Our next item is L2, approve overnight field trips and day trips over 150 miles. Assistant Superintendent Davis.
Thank you. It's been some time since we've had something like this on the agenda. This field trip request is for our high school track and field team to participate in the Arcadia Invitational Track Meet. Appropriate number of chaperones are identified on the attachment. Health and safety regulations of both the visiting county and ours will be enforced. Following any questions you have, we do recommend approval of this trip.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Hearing none. Any discussion by the board? Questions or comments? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that there's plenty of supervision on the bus to and from. And some of those chaperones sometimes take their own personal vehicle, but I hope that there's been allocation to make sure that, yeah, thank you.
We have specific requirements towards that, right? How many adults are we required to have per student in the bus?
We have a 1-to-10 ratio, and then on the bus, the seats are intended for the students first, and then usually a chaperone at front and back of bus.
Any other comments? Hearing nothing further, what are the wishes of the board on this item? Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Cervantes. I have a second by Trustee Brooks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is L3, ratify technology purchase to support student learning. Assistant Superintendent McLean and Davis.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So recently, as we were getting back to in-person learning and hybrid learning, it was determined that additional 1,500 Chromebooks should be ordered and distributed at schools throughout the district to ensure that the needs of all of our students are met. Those Chromebooks were ordered and received in early April and are now being used by the students. The cost of this purchase was $705,330, which was made with the federal COVID relief funds using piggyback competitive pricing. We're recommending that the board ratify this purchase, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Hearing none. Any discussion by the board? Trustee Maley?
Just out of curiosity, if something happens to one of the Chromebooks, who's responsible for that? Is it the student, or do we issue another one, or how does that work?
Go ahead, Kay.
We issue another device to the student, and our IT team is trained to repair most of the, sorry, there's feedback, most of the problems with the device. So if the student loses it or if it's stolen from the home, we do ask that the police report be filed for our own cases as well.
Any other comments, questions? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the 1,500, is that to replace devices, or is that a surplus for devices, or non-repairable devices?
The inventory of students that did not check out a Chromebook because they had a device at home was a little over 1,200 to 1,300. And so we anticipated in a lot of classrooms that the devices would be coming to and from school, and we didn't want their home device coming onto campus, so we needed to make sure we had some available for those students.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Trustee Paul?
Yeah, question. So we have this purchase, and then on item 8, we have ratified purchase of alternate Chromebook device. So is Chromebooking being used as a generic term? Why would we be purchasing Chromebooks and then be replacing other Chromebooks? Maybe I'm confused.
So the devices that are on this item were to fill an immediate need that we have for students that were returning to campus who did not have a device that they had checked out previously. Because the curriculum is available on the device, we had to make sure each student had access while on campus to the materials. So we had an immediate need for students, and so we filled an order of current devices for those purposes. They'll continue to be useful for us for home to school use. And then L8 is the items for future replacement of all devices, and I know Mr. McLean will speak to that item when we get there. So they are both new devices,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think I understand, but I'll wait for Mr. McLean's
I can
description.
do that now or when we get to that item.
No, that's fine. I'll wait. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions or comments? Wishes of the board on this item? I'll move to approve. Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Cervantes.
Second.
I have a second by Trustee Solis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have item L4, approve reclassification and revised job description, Assistant Superintendent Collegian.
Thank you, President Carrillo, Board of Trustees. This item returns to us from our previous board meeting. Attached for your consideration is a reclassification for the Supervisor of Child Welfare and Attendance to Supervisor of Student Support Services. This proposal results in a cost savings of approximately $90,000 per year, as identified in the financial impact. Administration is recommending this item to be approved. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Hearing none. I do have a couple of questions. So
Yes.
when this item was initially brought forward, I misunderstood. I thought we were adding 2 additional positions to the existing position and removing the, I guess it was a director position that we previously had. So are we not expanding?
So what we're doing is we are essentially eliminating the director position that currently works in that office and replacing it with a new position referred to as Supervisor of Support Services to reclassify the position. Essentially, currently the office holds 2 administrative positions now. It'll be limited to 1 moving forward, and replacing the other one with a intervention specialist, which would be the 3rd intervention specialist in that office. They currently house 2 to serve 16,000 students in the district. So replacing the other position with a intervention specialist will allow us to have 3 in there, which will be supervised by the supervisor in there to be able to identify the district and really divide them into 3 school areas like we have them now. So each intervention specialist will be responsible to working with school sites for serving at-risk youth, attendance needs, and other social emotional supports that they may need, supervised by the Student Support Services Supervisor, which is under the org chart of the Human Resources Department.
So other than cost savings, what else did we consider in deciding to remove the director position and creating it as a supervisor?
I think ultimately just evaluating the office itself and knowing that as the cross assistance with special education, the Human Resources Department, and Net Services, we realize that the work in that office can be in conjunction with one another, and knowing that adding that intervention specialist to replace Ms. Young's position would be suffice and fitting to support the district.
Okay. So we would still end up ultimately with 3 intervention specialists.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a clarification question? If
Yeah, go ahead.
So currently, Mr. Collegian, so currently in that office, we have 4 people, and 2 in a administration type role, and 2 intervention specialists.
Correct.
And so what this would do would remove 1 administrative role and add, so our sort of human resource power, at least numerically, is the same.
Numerically stays flat. Cost savings initiatives, reorganizing the work in the office, and allowing a even distribution of intervention specialist support divided in 3 areas for our school district.
Okay. And I mean, I was just going through the job description, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So the main responsibilities are around our concentrated population, especially our homeless youth and our foster youth, our transfers, our discipline, attendance, and our safety and emergency procedures.
Precisely.
And so moving from a directorship to a supervisor, but I didn't see any of these necessarily crossed out. So the responsibilities of that office still remain the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have any concerns with our ability to fill that position if we're going to, in essence, pay less and still require the same amount of work that was previously assigned to the director position?
The intervention specialist position, President Carrillo, or the
The
one that we-
supervisor, student support services.
The supervisor, essentially, we would reclass the current supervisor, who is Miss Maisie Young, to the supervisor of support services. So essentially, the position would remain the same with a title change, a slight increase in salary, and reorganizing the office.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to understand is why we're, and by no means, if we can save money, I love saving money.
Sure.
But I also, this is an area where I do want to make sure that if we need to either continue to allocate the same amount of funds or even expand our allocation to ensure that we're supporting our students and providing them the necessary services and attention that they need and that our families need, especially now as we're transitioning back to in-person. We anticipate, and I mean, it's been across the U.S., that the needs of our students are going to be significant to what we experienced before. So as we're making these decisions, I just want to make sure if ultimately it was a cost saving, or if after evaluating that position, it really wasn't providing us the necessary support or as much as we needed from there to support the structure.
Can I add?
Go ahead.
Jump in here. Sure. So what our staff is being asked that whenever we have an opportunity like this, when, you know, in this case, there is a retirement in that position, our staff is being asked to analyze their departments, take a look at the current need, and make the necessary adjustments either up or down, however you want to look at it. In some cases, there's requests for growth positions. In some cases, after analyzing the need of the department, there is an opportunity there to maybe even downsize or restructure or reorganize. And that's exactly what Mr. Collegian has done in this particular department. After analyzing it and discussing it with staff, we feel that what's being recommended to the board we will continue to provide the necessary services that are required district-wide, and at the same time save the district some money in terms of the salary that's going to be issued out in this particular case. So, you know, that's going to continue to be our mantra moving forward, is being able to analyze and explore opportunities, if you will, and not just opportunities for savings, but sometimes it's opportunity for growth, and it may cost us a little bit more. In this particular case, there is a savings, and you know, with the 3 intervention specialists that Mr. Collegian just mentioned, I mean, I think, you know, we're going to be providing additional support to our sites district-wide by adding that third employee.
Thank you. So I assume we consulted with the current employees.
This is correct.
Any other questions? Trustee Cervantes?
Just one quick point of order. Does that 90K incorporate health and welfare?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, sir.
What are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Trustee Cervantes. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Solis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
I have an abstention by Trustee Chan. Motion carries 6-0. Our next item is item L5, ratify purchase of air purification equipment. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So, excuse me, throughout this year, we have been purchasing air purification equipment in the classrooms, and we began in the fall by installing those in the elementary schools. As time progressed and as we got to the spring, as you know, we saw a quick pivot to the secondary schools opening as well. So we've been installing these over time and recognized the need in March to go and purchase the remainder of those, get those installed with the secondary classes returning to campus. So there were 400 additional units that were purchased in the past month on a piggyback bid from Home Depot Pro for a cost of $177,000 using the federal COVID relief funds, and those were installed and were done several weeks ago. So we do have these installed in every single classroom in the district, and as well as in the front offices at the schools and the nurses station. So we're recommending that the board ratify this purchase of the air purification equipment.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, any discussion by the board? How much maintenance is required for these items?
These are really low maintenance. They run, actually run 24/7, so they're on all the time. And these are directly in the classroom, easy to install, just run on their own. So they're pretty good.
And so with this purchase, we're not in need of any further purification systems. And as you've stated, every classroom now has one installed.
Yeah, they do have a life. There's a UV light that generates the ions that creates the air purification process. After several years, those would have to be replaced.
Okay.
But they should be good for quite a while.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? What are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. I have a motion to approve by trustee Cervantes. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by trustee Solis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Our next item is L6, approve growth positions for Facilities Planning Department. Assistant Superintendent Collegian.
Thank you, President Creo, Board of Trustees. Again, this item returns to you from our previous board meeting. Attached for your consideration are 2 growth positions for the Facilities Planning Department. The positions were requested by the Executive Services Department and Facilities Department and recommended to Human Resources based on departmental needs with the increased facility projects forthcoming. 2 positions are being recommended here. First one is titled Construction Manager. The cost for this one would be offset by replacing the current Executive Secretary position in that office. Results in an additional cost of just over $11,000 billed to the general fund as the financial impact. The second position is titled Facilities Technician. This position itself will be fully funded by developer fees, again as identified in the financial impact. Administration is recommending approval of these 2 positions. Mr. McLean is here with us to discuss in further detail the projects associated with these 2 positions for the upcoming school years.
Mr. McLean, if you, before you begin with your presentation, if I can just interject real quick. I do want to just let the board know that, when I first came into the district 3 years ago, I did have some conversations with Mr. Porterfield back then, and he was advocating for additional support in the facilities department. Maybe about, about a year and a half ago, Mr. Martinez and I and Mr. Collegian, prior to Mr. McLean's arrival to the district, sat in my office and talked about the needs in his department. And we did identify the 2 positions that are coming forward to you this evening. As I mentioned earlier, there's opportunities that present themselves, and sometimes, the timing works out in a way where it's just not as optimal, as we had these conversations 3 years ago and a year and a half ago. But we knew that there was going to be need in this department, and and that was something that we needed to bring forward to the board. This is one of those opportunities. I still consider it an opportunity to provide necessary and what we've identified as necessary support to the facilities department. I do want to thank Mr. Martinez and his department, because right now it's Joseph, it's John, it's Tatum, for the most part, taking on the projects that we currently have in the district, which is Garza, and we all know what a significant project that is. In addition to that, we also have modernizations that are taking place throughout the district and renovations that need to take place over at West Campus. Shields and Brawley location that will break ground sometime this year, which is our newest elementary school. So, we had mentioned at the last meeting that in some districts, when you don't have personnel within the district to handle the oversight of these projects, they usually get contracted out to what's called a construction management firm. And, that can exceed, 1 or 2% of the project? What is typical CM cost?
Oh, yeah, even higher than that.
Yeah, so, if you take, that percentage, even at the 2% of 100 and what's Garza?
105 million.
$105 million project, you can see how that quickly adds up into the millions. So, you know, this isn't something that just kind of spurred, my point of mentioning all this was that this isn't something that just kind of popped up. This is something we've been looking at for about 3 years, and quite frankly, it should have probably came to the board a lot sooner than this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and pass over the mic to Mr. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. So as you said, we've been looking at this for a while. With a vacancy coming up in the department, we had an opportunity now to kind of reorganize the department and look at adding just one additional staff. As Mr. Alvarado mentioned, we have three staff doing all this work right now, which has them spread very, very thin, and we're kind of they're kind of in survival mode. And so with the projects that we're going to be talking about tonight with the facilities master plan, just briefly, we have $180 million in projects coming down the pike in the next 5 or 6 years that are funded, that are ready to go, and we'll be talking about those in just a minute. If you look at the facilities master plan in the long term, we've got, you know, over $500 million in projects that are going to be coming. Some of those are off in the future, but even for the next number of years, we're going to be extremely busy with the growth of the district, and we see that growth coming in the development that's in our district. So phase one that we'll be talking about in the master plan is the next phase coming up is the ball fields completed at the high school, as well as the Visual and Performing Arts Center, State-of-the-Art Center, Aquatic Center, and then right at the same time, the Shields and Brawley school construction, which we hope to be, as Mr. Alvarado said, starting the first phase and breaking ground on that later this summer, this year. West Campus, again, we're already moving on some of the fields to get those ready as we've been planning. And then the next phase, you know, we'll have another elementary school that'll be coming after that. And all these projects, even though they're not happening all at the same time right now, but you have to do a lot of planning work, as you know, and have to go through a lot of hoops with the state in terms of applying for funds, and there's just a lot of things that are all happening at the same time. So with that is our recommendation, that we add the positions as proposed in this item.
Thank you. Any comments from the public on this item? Hearing none, any discussion by the board on this item? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'm kind of glad they brought this back to the board's attention, and the more I think about it, the more I realize that I think that we have a department that's underwater. And when I say that, I mean, you have three persons in this department, and Mr. McLean just rattled off the amount of work that's being processed through this particular department. And as Madam Chair laid it earlier, I don't like spending money either, but unfortunately we have to give people the right tools to be able to be as proficient as possible. With that being said, I got a couple questions in regards to, so as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not a facilities guy, but when I see construction manager and replacing an executive secretary, to me that makes a big difference in terms of what you're doing, the capabilities. Now, I don't know exactly what the executive secretary's responsibilities was in this department, but with all that being said, I'm assuming that this construction manager and facilities technician, some of that work is going to be spread out between the two of them, correct? Well, I see a big difference between having a bona fide construction manager in a department versus an executive secretary. And no offense to any executive secretary, but the reality is, I mean, you have to know what you're doing in a facilities department as a construction project manager, et cetera. So with that being said, we're just adding one new position. My second question was, are we still under contract with Mr. Contreras? Or I believe that was his last name. Bert? We are. And how much longer is that contract? Are we into that contract?
That contract is expiring in June, in just a couple months.
In June.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, has there been any talk of extending that contract?
Excuse me?
At this point in time, has there been any talk of extending that contract?
No, there is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that contract now is costing us approximately
It's approximately $48,000 a year.
To answer the executive secretary 3, as you may recall, there was a shift in my office from my executive secretary, and the facilities department absorbed that position. And so that was moved over to the business facilities department, and at that time, that position was inherited. And so that current position is now, there's a retirement there, and it has given us the opportunity to reorganize and restructure. So that's how that position ended up over in the facilities department.
If I could just clarify with the position, so the facilities technician is funded on the developer fee side,
Correct.
but that is the position that will be the support position for the facilities team, which
Okay.
is, there'll be some overlap in terms of some of the duties that the executive secretary had, but there will be much more in addition to that the facilities technician will be doing. And then the construction position will be similar to the one that already exists, a higher level to handle the workload of the projects that we're looking at, that we're talking about right now.
Well said. And no offense to the rest of my board members, but motion to approve. I know it's premature. I'm sure there's still more discussion, but I'm pretty convinced that we need to put this department in a position to be as proficient as possible. And right now, it sounds like they're really undermanned, and we're asking a lot of them.
So we do have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Trustee Solis? Okay. And I do have some questions, so we'll take further discussion before I take this to a vote. To address one of your comments/questions, the $50,000 contract would not be renewed if the board approves this. Otherwise, there would be real, if any, savings, although this position would be, the construction manager would be costing us slightly more than what the Secretary 3 or executive assistant would be costing, right?
Right, it's not figured into the analysis, but yes, if you recall at the last meeting, when we talked about this, yeah, we had stated that contract would not continue.
Correct. So I wanted to confirm that.
Yes.
I don't know, I don't have a point of reference as to what a construction manager makes and what the average salary is. It just seems really high to me. And again, I think it's just my lack of knowledge in that industry as far as in the educational field, what a construction manager makes.
I could help with that, President Carrillo. Our current salary schedule does have not only a job description, but a salary range for a construction manager. We did do some research in regards to this particular position in like districts or districts who don't use CMs and have construction managers. Sometimes their titles are slightly different, so we have to make a few phone calls to confirm that it was a similar position. Similar positions are referred to as construction project coordinator, supervisor of administrative services / program manager, or program manager in another district, and then program manager, construction and engineering staff. The range we learned with these positions were as low as 77 and as high as 96,000 is the range over 5 steps. So our salary schedule was commensurate, very close to the range of the position. That's just salary, Mr. Alvarado. Health and welfare would be additional 13 costs of the district and some costs of the employee monthly.
And that was comparing it within the educational field?
That was comparing it to other school districts in our area.
Okay.
Yes.
My other question regarding the facilities technician, what is our plan in the event that we don't generate sufficient developer fees to cover that cost?
Well, the cost of the position would only represent about 3% of the developer fees. And in fact, the cost that's being proposed at a step 3 level is less than 3%. It's about 2.8%. So there is some cushion in there of the fees. The fees do fluctuate from year to year. But based on what we're seeing right now, our growth is continuing. We believe that developer fee revenue will will continue and expand as we see more houses being built in our area.
But in the event that there was a fallout and the monies weren't there for some reason or another, we would have to reconsider the position and bring it back to the board for other consideration.
Okay, so it wouldn't automatically, would the position continue to exist, and would the salary just be funded through our general fund, or probably our general fund, in the event that the developer fees do not cover that cost
Sure.
without bringing it back to the board?
Right, after evaluation, if there's a general fund expenditure that can supplant the developer fee void, one option, but ultimately that decision would be brought back to the board for discussion and consideration to make that alteration.
Is there a requirement to bring it back to the board, absent our direction or potentially a friendly amendment to the motion made?
I don't know that there's a legal requirement to bring it back to the board.
Or
but
procedurally, if we had any rules.
Procedurally, essentially, it could come as an ERN to the personnel report, yes.
So I would like to offer a friendly amendment to the motion if the maker of the motion and the second accept, would be that if there is a need, if the developer fees no longer fund the facilities technician, that the item be brought back to the board for further discussion and approval before the general fund supplements that salary.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so the maker of the motion, Trustee Cervantes, do you accept my amendment?
That sounds more than reasonable and fair.
Thank you.
Like
Trustee Solis?
anything else, we have to pivot. Sometimes we need to add, sometimes we need to subtract.
Great.
In 5 or 7 or whatever years down the road that we found out, well, then we're heavy in that department, then we've got to pivot, make some decisions at that point in time. More than fair. Thank you.
Great. And Trustee Solis also said yes. Any further discussion on this item? Trustee Chan?
So I'm going to happily defer to Trustee Paul if he would like. I did ask actually, Mr. Collegian, in terms of commensurate salary for at least the description in terms of the experience and education in terms of people that, just engineers that I know that do sort of similar work. They definitely shared this was on the, and you shared as well, that this was much on the higher side in terms of both locally and in terms of the educational and experience categorization. But I will happily defer to Mr. Paul if he knows. But people in the field that I just asked, that was something that they brought up quite a bit.
Trustee Paul, we don't mean to put you on the spot.
Not at all. Not at all.
Never.
Yeah, so in my experience, and I don't necessarily do construction, but I've managed construction projects kind of accidentally. And in my experience, it depends on whether or not they're self-employed or not, or whether or not they're an employee of another firm. But I do have another question if this is my opportunity to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, two things. Number one, do you foresee, it's kind of a loaded question, do you foresee any issue going from someone who we subcontract for these services? Are we losing anything as far as capability of perspective or anything like that going from outside looking in to having our own folks do that kind of work? That's one question. The second question is looking at the specific responsibilities. Item 14, may participate in the inspection, review, and evaluation of facilities. I wasn't aware that we could inspect our own.
Which item was that?
Item 14.
Mr. Paul, if I can jump in there, I think the term inspection in the job description refers to more evaluate, progress monitor, and to assure that and Mr. Martinez could probably speak better to this, but to make sure that the job itself is appropriate and moving along and making sure that whatever the objective was is that the needs are being met there. Not inspection as in providing.
That's what I expected.
Right.
However, I would suggest changing that language so there's no confusion at all as far as what.
Well, and sometimes when we do our Williams and complaint, the quarterly report that just came to the board this evening, You know, we'll go out and do our own inspections and identify if there are facility improvements or upgrades that are needed. And so that's probably where that item might be addressing that need in the district as well. Who currently does we have a third party that currently does that now?
For DSA inspections?
No, for just Williams' quarterly
Or-
report.
Oh, yeah, we've done it, we've done both. We've had
In-
outside people look, and we also do an internal
And
work as
in-house.
well.
But this is mentioned specifically in relation to construction. It's a different thing.
So what if we added, I mean, just a qualifier, internal inspections? Do you think that would be sufficient, or is the word inspection the problem?
But I mean, if you take a look at it's talking about being able to go out and inspect and review and evaluate facilities and grounds, and then come up with long-term facility recommendations for improvements and projects. So it's not the inspector of record that it's referencing, I don't think.
Right.
You know, it's more of internal, you know, I mean, those are our boots on the ground and the eyes that we depend on when looking at campus beautification or improvements within our local schools.
I would buy your explanation,
Mhm.
but it specifically says may participate in the inspection if you cut out everything in between of facilities. So
Oh.
it infers inspection of materials, and I'd just be careful with that.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but we do have our employee, in my experience, in my previous district, I had my own director of facilities inspect our schools
Right.
for broken windows, for, you know, specifically having to do with the Williams quarterly report. And so they did do some inspection, but I can see where you're going though as well in terms of an inspector of record for specific projects.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the intent of this. So if we need to clean up the language to reflect that, we can.
Absolutely. If there's a recommendation to alter it or strike it and leave it with may participate in review and just eliminate in the inspection of, I think the outcome of the job description doesn't change for what the position would be doing in
Yeah,
that. in
I'm
that
probably
regard.
splitting hairs, but
Yeah.
just to avoid any kind
Right.
of confusion at all.
No, job descriptions are written for hairs to be split. I live in that world and making sure that it's as clear as we can get to, so the
Yeah.
work is produced as it's written. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the input.
And to those points, though, now as we're talking about this out loud, I'm not even sure whether saying may participate is appropriate if we're expecting this applicant and employer, this position, to engage in that type of work. And to address the inspection concerns, I think we either have to look at a different word, but I don't know that removing it completely solves the problem. Because as you point out, these job descriptions can become very important in
Absolutely.
certain circumstances.
Perhaps a more appropriate explanation could read, participate in review and evaluation of.
Yes.
So it's not passive, it is a part of the job. We lead with participate, or you could actually substitute the word may with shall, but I think leading with participate does, I'm assuming, potentially meet our objective there.
Well, that's if right now, we're currently using a third party to do the facility inspections. We may choose not to go with the third party, and then that's where this would come into play. So
Right, that's what I'm
we're-
saying.
yeah.
I don't know that I would be so comfortable as to just eliminate inspection versus if there's another, again, my experience in construction was very limited, and I did not inspect anything except employees.
I think
Thinking
as it's written, does allow us to be flexible in the work the employee would be able to do. And as explained before, you know, our internal understanding of the term inspection isn't to be the certificate provider or the outside inspector or evaluator. It's to inspect within our school district for the needs it has on various projects or repairs, from plumbing needs to broken glass to dry rot, et cetera.
What would be the language that we could add that would say as allowed by what entity would oversee that? I mean, we can't go and send our own employee to be the inspector of record for Garza High School.
You know,
Right.
I can't recall. I'm not a testing inspection guy. I've just been around
Right.
it enough. Is it Oshpod? Do I remember that right?
I don't think the intent of the language here for the inspection is as to the inspector of record. I think if that word is troublesome, I think we could eliminate that and just say participate in review and evaluation. We surely want our facilities managers to be looking at our schools on a constant basis, because they are and looking at projects that are coming up and evaluating those projects. So that's just part and parcel to the job that we have.
That's why I'm wondering whether it would be more appropriate to say participate in internal or in-house inspections or something, just so that it's clear that this is something that we're doing for our benefit. There's no
Correct.
regulatory component to it or any
Right.
reporting.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is saying something like, participates in, certified inspections.
Oh, there we go.
You could say that, or you could just remove it. It's either one.
Either way.
I think you could argue that the word behind it, review, or
Yeah.
the word behind that, and evaluate, meet the same goals as the word
Yes.
prescribed.
So I think we can strike the word.
Yeah.
I agree.
That'll eliminate the confusion.
There's one in every group, I know. Can you answer the first question, though? The
First question
perspective,
of
the inside
as
versus
outside
outside
versus inside,
perspective?
yeah.
Are we losing anything?
Yeah, if anything, I think it's, my perspective is that we're gaining because our staff are going to be very knowledgeable of our own facilities. It's like your house. You know your house better than someone who comes in and looks at it. And we have people that are in the facilities department that have the expertise to understand what is needed. So I think the having the internal staff that are vested in the projects and know the history, we have a lot of history in our projects, and that is to me an advantage to have that in-house. There are times when you need outside help, and we look for that, and we have people that we can call on to do that. But on an ongoing basis, I think it's an advantage.
I can see how, thank you for that, and I can
You're
see
welcome.
how it would be a time saver for construction managers not to have to come to speed on a project and all those types of things.
Right. We also have
But I know
control.
that outside perspective is invaluable, so.
Yeah, both are
And
important.
so the mechanism we have for that is what?
Mechanism for.
Outside evaluation whenever we need it. You said we have the ability to do that or to bring
Well,
folks in.
we can certainly contract even on short-term or smaller contracts to do that when needed a certain expertise.
But it's not something that we have ongoing and wouldn't have if we had this person internally.
I think it's just as needed.
Yeah.
As the situation calls for it.
So what kind of a situation might call for that in your estimation?
Well, if it's an area that's maybe very technical, and you know, even with Harris, with our general contractor now, they have experience that we look to as well. The projects, the new school has engineers that are working on the project on both sides that help us in those technical areas.
I think it's also fair to note that currently on the Garza project, we are doing that internally. We don't have an outside group coming in and helping as on the district side of it. You know, we do have the general contractor, which is Harris Construction. But right now, our staff is handling that on their own with the staff that they have. So this is just adding additional. It's a value added in terms of having additional support to that department. You know, the other option is to go that CM route, right? And the district hires the CM to come in and represent the district on the project. And again, you know, you're going to pay out a portion of the cost, and it's not going to be in the $100,000 and something range. It'll be in the $2 million, $3 million range. And what they do is they come in and they serve as the Mr. Martinez and the John for the district. But that's a separate contract.
So, in other words, it sounds like maybe the civil or the architect could serve in the function that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anytime, especially on the larger projects, it's really a team effort. It's both outside and inside, and everybody working together to get it
Good.
done as best as possible.
Okay. I mean, I like the idea. I'm just asking the
Yeah.
questions.
No, that's a good
It's a good
question. Great
question.
questions.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think even to further highlight, when we contracted with the individual who was a former employee, I mean, even for that outside contract, technically, they used to be in-house. So it wasn't like we were necessarily looking for those external expertise. So I guess to compare it to what we're doing now, there wouldn't be a change.
Yeah, it's a similar concept.
Okay. So my last point on that job description would be to maybe look at others and see how we can ensure that whatever the purpose and intention of inspection is, that continues to be addressed before we completely eliminate that. But I'll leave that to your discretion, as you guys are the ones that would be enforcing and having to deal with the language that is included or is excluded from the job description. Any further discussion on this item? Trustee Paul, did all your questions get answered?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Trustee Chan, did you have any other questions? Okay. What are the wishes of the board on this item? We have I'm sorry, that's right. We have a motion and a second with an amendment. I meant to say, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is L7, approve revised job description. Assistant Superintendent Collegian.
Thank you, President Carrillo. Job descriptions are brought to the Board of Trustees from time to time to review or revise and adopt the amended changes, like we did similar to our previous item. This particular job description for your consideration is a revised one for the Network Systems Manager position for the Technology Services Department. These revisions were requested with a few changes and recommended to the Human Resources Department. There are no financial implications here. Administration is recommending approval of the changed job description. Some of the items specific to the job description changes include title to accurately reflect the work and responsibilities, to also assure that the title makes it more competitive to neighboring school districts and attracts appropriate external talent. Supervisor function will also support the growth of the department. And lastly, the knowledge, skills, and certifications have been updated to the current industry standard certifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Discussion by the board? I have a question. Do we have any individuals in this position currently?
Yes. We did. The position is vacant now because of a resignation.
Okay.
Moved out of state and looking to refill the position making changes prior to posting it with the appropriate title changes in the job description.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? What are the wishes of the board on this item? I have a motion by Trustee Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Trustee Cervantes? A second by Trustee Cervantes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is ratify change in Chromebook device purchase. Assistant Superintendent McLean and Davis.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So this is kind of dovetailing off the earlier discussion. The board had approved in October a purchase of 15,200 Chromebooks, which were HP products at that time to basically a generational change in the devices and to upgrade because our devices are older. And so that was already kind of in plans even before we got into the pandemic. But during this time, we were able to use the federal funds that were available for technology to make that purchase. And as we have learned, and a lot of districts have learned over the past few months, that the supply process was very delayed. And so We learned just here in the last month that our supplies would not be coming until July, I believe it was, for several months after the end of the school year. And so we're working with our partners, Office Depot, who we used for the purchase to look at alternatives, and the Dell products, which are comparable, and Ms. Davis can speak a little bit to the technology and the committee looking at that, were available and could be received here in the next month. And so we were able to work with Office Depot. Our technology team worked with Office Depot to acquire these for the same quantity at the same price. And so we have put in that order, and again, hope to have those here in the next few weeks. In fact, I believe some of them are coming here very shortly. Ms. Davis, do you have anything to add to that? No? Okay. Any questions on that? We're asking for ratification of this item.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I know there is board discussion. Trustee Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding right, or if I'm misunderstanding, let me know. So it sounds like what's going on is the new ones from the previous item are current technology.
Yes.
Okay, and these are current technology. The only reason we're replacing is because, or changing is because of availability.
Correct.
And we're changing out older technology.
Right.
Okay.
Just a change in brand.
In my mind, we're ordering Chromebooks and then we're getting rid of a bunch, so I saw a problem there and I didn't understand it totally. Thank you.
Yeah. The ones, both orders will be utilized
Got it.
effectively.
Thanks for the explanation.
Sure.
Yeah, so the Chromebooks that we approved on October 13th of last year were never purchased.
They were ordered, they were never received
There we
because
go. I'm sorry,
of
were
the
never
shipping
received.
delays. Yeah.
Did we compare the technology to make sure they're still comparable? We're not,
Yes, the teams, actually, when they did the review, reviewed both devices. At the point the quote was prepared and brought to you back in October, it was just selected. One of the two was selected. Both had been used with students, used in classrooms, and were favorable. As it turned out, we should have gone with the other one. They probably would have arrived sooner.
Agreed.
And we wouldn't have had to get other devices along the way.
do we know what the lifespan of these devices are? We replace them, but every 3 years, 3 to 5?
It's Chris back there. Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit longer than that. Yeah.
Oh, Chris
Mr.
is
Martinez,
here.
come on down.
Oh.
Press that button. Right there.
The lifespan is typically 5 years is what we look at. So we look at the fourth year is when we start to assess new Chromebook devices to hand out.
Awesome, great, thank you. Any other questions? If not, what are the wishes of the board on the item? Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion by trustee Cervantes. Is there a second? I have a second by trustee Solis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Our next item is item L9, and our final action item, ratify warehouse lease. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So, as we've discussed before, the district staff have been looking for some time for warehouse space, and evaluated a number of properties with a commercial broker here that's knowledgeable in the area. And it's really a tough market right now for space. There's not a lot of options out there, but we're very fortunate to find a warehouse space in our district. We currently have a very small warehouse and office building outside the district boundaries. It has no loading dock. It's about 2,300 square feet right now. It's really insufficient to service the needs of the school district, especially with where we're at during this pandemic, as well as in the years to come. So we were looking for additional space, and after looking at all these properties, we identified a 22,000 square foot warehouse, which is over on West Barstow Avenue, and it's competitively priced. We did some comparisons with the broker, and we also would be able to relocate the district's duplication department, which is in an area we talked about it, I believe, last month during the facilities master plan discussion. That building is really insufficient for staff and for the duplicating needs that we have with the district. So we have a lease with a local owner here for a 5-year period with an option to extend for 3 additional years. And so we have had this agreement looked at by our district's legal counsel, and they signed off on it, and we are looking at lease payments of about $23,000 per month, which will be payable over the first 3 years of the 5-year lease, plus the $15,000 security deposit. We will terminate our existing warehouse lease as of June 30th when it expires, which will save $25,000 a year with that property. And this is a item that will be funded by federal COVID relief funds. So we have the dollars available for that. So recommending that the board ratify the lease, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, board discussion? Trustee Mailing?
Have we looked into building our own storage facility?
We have looked at that. We do have some options. It's just that in the time period it would take for us to move forward. Really what this does, it enables us to give us time to develop those plans more fully and to look at what is needed. But we would like to ultimately own our property and own our warehouse building. So that's where we're headed. This just allows us to move in that direction.
Do we have an idea where you'd like that warehouse? Because it looks like this one seems to be out of the way as well. As far as on the other side of 99?
It's just on the other side, yes. It's about, just a few minutes from our district office, but it does meet our needs. We do have the possibility of putting it over on the transportation facility area over there. So that is what we're looking at for the future.
What's holding that decision up? The reason I'm asking is we're going to spend $1 million on this, and we could build a nice warehouse for that.
Looking at the cost estimates of what we would need to do would be more than that, and so it would take available funds, and it would take plans to be further developed in order to do that. So we're just not able to do that, in the time frame that we need the space.
Thanks.
But that is our goal.
Okay.
Can you use your mic, please?
Purchasing a warehouse outright, and the market just isn't bearing that right now. But that was our first objective, was to try to purchase it outright.
Trustee Paul?
Thank you. Are there, is there expense related to common area maintenance or anything like that? Or is that built in?
Sorry, what was the question?
Common area maintenance, landscaping, that kind of thing?
No, it's just the building itself.
Just the building?
Yeah.
So the landowner is assuming all those costs?
Yes, that's correct.
Could we have gotten a lower rate if we decided to go with a net or a triple net or something like that? Or did we consider that?
We considered, that option as well. We were in a competitive situation on this property, just like we were on the previous property that we looked at. So we gave them, we had some negotiation. We gave them
Sure. Okay,
what
that
we thought
answers
was our
my
best
question,
offer.
I think, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo a little bit about what Mr. Mailing just said. This is a 5-year contract. I understand that there may be a timeline to build our own, but I do know that the district owns property within, I think there's still a piece of property on, Grantland and Shields that is not doing anything. I can't see tying ourselves into a 5-year contract in the tune of that amount of money, when it makes better sense for us to probably build something, even though we couldn't build it very quickly. But I can't see signing a contract for 5 years either. Had you guys taken this into consideration, and if you did, what was the rationale behind it?
So there is an item on the agenda with the facilities master plan. And one of the projects on there is a future district office MOT building over in the transportation department, but that is on the bottom of the list. And so when we look at these, a warehouse is a great idea. I mean, I think it's a need for the district. We should be looking into building it. But when we're talking about the prioritization of projects, we have Garza, second phase, new elementary school, another elementary school, possibly another one in Gratland, the West Campus, renovations. And so the warehouse would have to fall within that discussion as to whether or not that is going to be a priority for the district ahead of those projects, or is it going to continue to be the last project on the list that we're going to consider moving forward? And there's only so many resources to go around, as we all know, right? I mean, as far as the dollars that are available in order to for capital improvements. So, yeah, that's really where it comes down is the prioritization of projects moving forward. I mean, if we want to move the warehouse and MOT to the top of the list, sure, we have the money to fund that, but all that's going to do is take away from the other projects that we've already identified and have prioritized.
I know Trustee Paul and Trustee Solis have some comments, but I wanted to make one as well. With respect to, and I agree with both Trustee Mailing and Trustee Cervantes, but wasn't there also a need to move a lot of our PPP that we currently own now out of wherever it was being stored? The facility that we essentially were leasing didn't even have the capacity to keep that. So
That's correct.
And do we have any estimate, even if it's just like a ballpark, I promise I won't hold you to it, as to what it would cost to build our own warehouse, if the board was to decide to move that up the list?
I can ask Mr. Martinez. It would be multiple millions of dollars, yeah. And we did look at a shorter-term lease if possible, but in the market conditions that we were, and the negotiation and competition that we were facing, it was really not an option for us to do a shorter-term lease.
Trustee Paul and then Trustee Solis?
I don't see it on here. Maybe I missed it. How much of this is office space?
There's
for
currently
the copy center.
Currently, 1,000 square feet of office space. We will have to, and we have in the lease an option to expand that in order to accommodate the duplicating area.
Okay, so for right now, there's no TIs included,
No.
TI cost, okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, with regard to the comment, and I totally get the idea, it makes more sense to build it if we can, if it's prioritized.
We agree.
But if we had to get out of the lease, we could get out of the lease for a cost, correct?
Yeah,
There's a clause in the contract that says what the parameters are there?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to echo our President's statements about the need for storage space because of COVID. Also, I know with the given marketplace right now, it might not be advantageous for the property owner to enter a lease-to-own project, but we would have that option at the end of this contract to renegotiate that possibly?
Yes, we would, and we have expressed that interest already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Cervantes?
I wanted to respond to Mr. Alvarado's response in terms of the complexity of a warehouse is much different than a school or modernization and things of that nature. I can't see where, especially now that we're even adding to that facilities department, that we're going to get a little bit more money for our more bang for our money. With that being said, I can't see where, and maybe I'm incorrect, and correct me if I am, I can't see where a storage facility is that complex in terms of how much time, effort, and energy it's going to take, and even the permitting process, being that it's not a facility for students, it's not a facility that has to meet the criteria. It's a storage warehouse, whether it be on site at the new facility where it's potentially posed, or a site that is already owned by the district. I just can't see spending, almost $1.4 million in rent money. I understand the need. I just can't understand the length of the period of time of the contract, and I understand we could buy ourselves out of the contract, but at the same token, I'm not 100% convinced that this is the best solution that we have, or that we could come up with. And I'm not challenging you guys in any shape or form. I just want to make sure that we are fiscally making the best decisions in the best way possible to maximize our dollars, whether they're COVID relief money or not. And we're very blessed to get that money, but at the same token, I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're getting everything that we're paying for on behalf of the taxpayers.
Yeah, our primary interest was in looking in property to purchase. It's just not out there, and probably won't be out there for some time. So we came up with the best deal that we could get, and we think we have a really good situation here. And it is the COVID dollars. It's not general fund dollars of the district, but it's a small percentage of the COVID dollars that we have been provided with. And at this point, given the needs of the district and the needs of even the duplicating department, looking at our constraints that we were dealing with, it was the best option that we have at this time.
I do just want to reiterate, we were trying to purchase a facility out of the chute. It's just not out there. The market isn't bearing it. We actually asked this owner of this facility here if he would be interested in selling the property to us as well, but again, not interested in selling.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing nothing further, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by trustee Solis. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by trustee Paul. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-1. A no vote by trustee Cervantes and 0 abstentions. Thank you very much. That'll conclude our action items. We now move on to our information items. The first item is M1, receive information on reopening schools for the year 2020-2021. And this will be presented by all of our assistant superintendents. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carrillo, and it is a presentation, so we'll give you a minute to adjust. We'll start first, as we have each time, with an update on our data. Our current data indicates we continue to be in the orange zone for health. We've had a successful return, as you heard announced this evening, to in-person instruction. Our students and our parents have navigated the health screening first thing, and then the campus rules in place for each person's health and safety. Our elementary, just as a reminder, came back. Now we're in the third week of their return, and our secondary students came back last week. Teachers are doing an incredible job. Administrators put out plans that were phenomenal for the return of students. Support staff was there and ready to make sure everything was a smooth transition. Prior to all of this, we were working off survey data, and we anticipated about 60% of our students were wanting to return to in-person instruction. This graph shows by grade span the actual numbers of students that are coming back in in-person instruction. You can see at the elementary level we have the highest rate of in-person attendance, and that is at 60%, and then it goes down from there. 7th and 8th grade about 54%, and 9th through 12th grade 40% of the students were there for their first week of instruction last week. We'll keep tabs as well on the instruction as we move forward. That was the first week of 9/12's information. So on average, 55% of our students are returning. We did ask our principals to analyze, once students returned in their first week of instruction, analyze what possible pain points we had and could we make any adjustments, since the CDC had made new allowances for distances between students from 6 feet down to 3 or 4 feet. And so I'm going to walk you through each grade span and then the pros and cons and a recommendation for this. Grades TK to 2 are already on campus 4 days a week. They are on campus between 8:30 and 11 a.m. Then they go home for their extended learning online. We have 8 schools that now have a wait list because parents have changed opinion and have asked to return their students to campus. And we cannot accommodate a number of students. In some campuses, it's 2 students, and at some campuses, it is certainly more than that in the double digits. Schools can accommodate the wait list if the spacing is moved down from 3 to 4. But in just a moment, you'll hear that we ran into some real issues with moving down to 3 or 4 outside of the classroom being available. You'll hear me mention transportation limits have not changed, nor have contact tracing requirements. Let me move over before we get there to those details. Grades 3 to 6, currently students attend 2 days a week, whether they're in group A or B. We posed the question, what if we combined the groups of students A and B and allowed them 4 days on campus? Can we do that? Approximately 90 of our classrooms, so now I'm not talking by school, we're going by classroom, about 90 classrooms, the numbers are low enough they could accommodate that. Sounds great for those 90. However, for the students enrolled in 75 of our classrooms, they cannot accommodate that, and that would be an inequitable situation for their instruction. They would have to move down to 3 or 4 feet spacing in order to accommodate going to 4 days a week. Grades 7 to 12, been back 1 week, and so it was a pretty big push on our part to ask them, of the students that arrived, what could we accommodate, and at this point, few classrooms could move to 4 days a week because, as you know, students attend 4 classes during their day, and so there needs to be room in all 4 of the classes the student attends for that student to return to 4 days a week. So in some classes, there was plenty of space, in others, none. So similar to the campus that has 8 classes, it works, and 7 classrooms, it doesn't at the elementary level. The specialized classes and our odd-even schedules also turned into some real difficulties with scheduling. And so by specialized classes, I'm thinking about a science classroom that has a very different setup in terms of furniture, as well as the use of equipment in the room, because at this point, students are using their own equipment during that class period. Certainly there are pros for families to return students to 4 days a week. Some families are happy with the schedule, some would love for that to occur, so we have heard both sides of this argument. We know there is a benefit to students that wanting to return, trying to accommodate that. We also know there's a challenge. Students have just gotten used to a transition and a new schedule with the students they're meeting with and the attention they're receiving in classroom. Disrupting it again does bring up a concern. With that, we are working with our nursing team with contract tracing, and this is something school districts around the valley are facing. The contract tracing and quarantine rules around 6-foot distancing is how it is set. If we are to move lower than that and move students closer together, still wearing a mask, the quarantine requirements would probably increase. More students and more classrooms would have to move to quarantine because the CDC has not changed their contract tracing guidelines to respect the 3 to 4 foot distancing. It is still set at 6 feet. That's a concern for us because we don't want our students to have to be quarantined. We want to set up the classroom to allow them to stay through the last 6 weeks of school. We also spoke with our transportation supervisor or director, Crystal, and she does not have any adjustment on the spacing on buses. We are limited to 52 students per bus. And if we bring back students 4 days a week, it changes the bus schedule. So there's a domino effect to what hours the TK2 students are at school, and then the ability for 3rd through 6th grade students to come. Right now, a bus goes into a neighborhood and picks up to 52 students. On an A day, if we combine A and B, we're talking 104 students, and so there's an issue in terms of drivers and buses for them to accommodate that. There has not been any change to our understanding right now on a change of limits on the bus. Of course, any adjustment that we make in terms of the conditions of health and safety, we would consult with our bargaining groups for that. We have 6 weeks left of school, and so in our discussions around the pros and cons, Certainly happy to answer questions, but we would be recommending that we continue on the schedule that we currently have for our students and allow them consistency in that schedule through the end of the school year. It is hard to say that because, of course, we want all of our students back, and we're looking forward to that in the fall, and I'll mention that before we finish this presentation.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Happy to report that we have, in partnership with United Health, set up a vaccine clinic exclusive to Central Unified students. First clinic will take place actually this Saturday at the East Campus parking lot from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are asking that parents accompany students who are under the ages of 18 and to also bring with them a completed United Health consent form as well. We provided these documents to our students already. We're looking forward to hosting this exclusive event for our students. The vaccine in use is going to be the Pfizer vaccine. We currently have 2,400 students eligible and who are interested and ready to serve them on May 1st for dose 1, and then do a second clinic for dose 1 on May 22nd as well.
We'd like to also start looking forward to next school year and wrapping up this year. We are getting close. As we mentioned last meeting, we were making progress on in-person graduation. Dates are now set. Communication will begin to go out. We will certainly get onto your calendars when these graduation that are in person are able to be held. You will see that for the majority of our larger ceremonies, they are outdoors at Collegian Stadium. For our campuses that have a very small number of graduates, we are able to accommodate them in this building on different nights. It does require our graduation of Central High School, both East and West Campus, to be over 3 nights due to the capacity requirements, limited seating, and tickets, and we are thrilled to still have it and to be able to celebrate our graduates in person. Our middle school promotion will continue to be a modification as well. They will do in-person recognition similar to how our high school students were recognized as they came up, took a picture, were celebrated, family was there, and then the schools will be putting together a promotion and farewell video with speeches and the like for families to celebrate together in a larger group from home. Lastly, as we think ahead to next school year, there's been a lot of conversation around SB 98, which has allowed us to operate in distance learning from every campus this school year and at a modified instructional minutes per day. That sunsets in June. We are expected to return in the fall. In-person instruction, 5 days a week, a full day schedule. Safety and health guidelines will continue to be updated all summer long, I am sure of that, and we will abide by those requirements to return. And we will still be able to offer distance learning to the families that would be most comfortable staying in that setting because we now have an online homeschool. So with that, thank you for the updates, and we're happy to answer questions that you have.
Any comments from the public? Okay. Hearing that there are no in-person or telephonic comments, we will now move to board discussion. Any comments or questions from the board? Trustee Solis?
I'd like to thank the staff for arranging the immunization program. Appreciated it a lot. I would encourage the public to get their children, if they qualify, out there to receive the immunization. And also, I have a question towards staff. I know the superintendent is meeting with the health department. Is it feasible that if we get a certain percentage of our students at a facility, high school level, immunized, that it might, we'll be able to put more children in an individual classroom? Has that discussion even came up?
No, that discussion hasn't come up. As of right now, staff's recommendation is to carry out the current hybrid format to the end of the school year.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about it, we have, what, 5 more weeks of instruction left. And it is quite a disruption to change and have to, hate to use that word again, but pivot again. I mean, for not only the families, but also the students that are already accustomed to the current format.
Thank you.
Do we have any high school students on a waiting list wanting to return and unable to because of the distancing requirements and busing?
At high school, not at this time in their first week. We just have the 4 days, so they've come 2 days in at this point. We do not.
A couple of questions, maybe just one. With the vaccination, I just want to confirm for anyone who is watching or listening or listens to our recording, this is free to our students. So
That's correct.
okay, and they also do not have to have health insurance.
This is correct.
Okay, so any student, so long as they're Central Unified 16 plus, brings their parents or their guardian, has the signed consent form, will be eligible for vaccination.
That too is correct.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to ask a couple more questions in regard. You said we had approximately 2,400 students that were eligible for the injection,
Yes, sir.
and we have 2 injection site days, the first and the second, the 22nd being the second injection. How many students can we pass through that particular injection clinic that particular day?
They typically can get up to 900 to 1,000 in a given day to vaccinate. So I think what we're learning now is we know that some of our students have already been vaccinated. And United Health believes that with the numbers that we have, based on some of the percentages they're predicting to come to receive their vaccinations, that first dose clinics this Saturday and the 22nd will suffice.
So is there any works or any plan to hold a second clinic based on maybe to pick up some additional stragglers and or some of the students that maybe didn't go the first go around?
Absolutely. They're willing to work with us on any given Saturday where they have availability. Students are also eligible to visit we moved it to Collegian now because the high school is open, and they are taking students currently, or 16 and older currently, to obtain their vaccinations outside of the exclusive events.
Okay, outstanding. And I'm assuming that the paperwork or the consent form by the parents is in multiple languages.
I believe so,
Okay.
yes.
And then I also wanted to say thank you very, very much for being so proactive in terms of getting that clinic out there. I think the district has led all schools in its process in terms of providing testing, in terms of providing injection sites for the community and now our students. So kudos to the district for that. Thank you. That's exceptional.
Thank you.
The other thing is that I just want to ask one more quick question. It kind of mirrors what Mr. Solis asked. But in the event, and it looks like there's a strong possibility we may, in the event that we get down into the yellow, which would basically be the last tier before no tier, is there a discussion about pivoting? I'm going to assume no, based on the question that Mr. Solis asked, but I'd like to ask that question.
We're leaving that option open. I mean, obviously, we're leaving that option open. If we do head in that direction, we'll bring back another conversation to the board. There is still the second, the lag time between the first shot and the second shot. How many days is that? Like 20-some days between?
For the Pfizer, I think it was 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
3 to 4? Yeah. Yeah, 3 weeks for Pfizer. So that puts us out, 21 days from Saturday. So, I mean, we're talking about a week or two left of,
Well, the way it looks between herd immunity and the way the numbers are going down, I mean, we stand a very good chance to be down into the yellow before end of school year. And I just didn't know. And I know how difficult it is to pivot, obviously, and with a short period of time. I just was kind of curious, and I'm sure the parents would like to know if, in fact, we do have a plan in play ready to turnkey if we get to that point.
Do we have a current plan for that right now?
In play.
Well, I mean, we would have to, revisit all the classrooms, rearrange the desks,
Right. Right.
revisit the cleaning and disinfecting I mean, can we put a plan together? Do we have one right now? No, we don't have it written down, but we do have in mind what that would look like. And I'm confident that staff would be able to turn that around. It's just a matter of, we'd have to revisit that.
In addition, we would have to change our transportation, and it might reduce transportation for some students that currently have it, because the limits to busing, we understand, will stay at least.
Understood, thank you.
Any other, Trustee Paul?
Yeah, thank you. I find it ironic. I know transportation is, like you mentioned, one of the limiting factors and a huge limiting factor. And there's probably no movement at the state or the county level for approval of any kind of a different plan, correct?
Correct.
Which is really ironic because I flew to the East Coast not that long ago and the plane was packed full of high school travel teams and college sports teams. Kind of interesting, but I'll leave that one alone. I just wanted to say beyond that, I appreciate the update and for the diligence, and I particularly like the thinking ahead part where we're looking at in-person instruction 5 days next year. So look forward to that.
I do too.
Any other comments from the board? Just echoing a lot of what my fellow trustees have shared. I mean, thank you to our administration for all of the work that you guys have been doing, and of course to our teachers and everyone else who we can't do it without their support. I mean, I think that's another thing to keep in mind. Even if we're dealing with state restrictions, ultimately every department, unit, bargaining group has to be able to agree before we can really move forward. So thank you to everyone for everything that we've been done, and hopefully next year looks a lot different than what we've experienced. And with that, we'll move on to our next item, M2, receive information on contract with Enome Inc. for 2021. Assistant Superintendent Davis? I don't know if I said that correctly, but.
We're calling it Goalbook. The name of the product in the platform is Goalbook by Enome Incorporated. It is a product that our teachers of students with disabilities currently uses in the preparation of IEPs. We would like to continue that contract. It does help in both identification of goals within an IEP that are aligned to standards, which is a critical part of writing an appropriate IEP, instructional strategies and tools to monitor progress, which are all critical areas as we resume in-person instruction. Again, we have used it for some time, and we would like to continue to use it and expand its availability to all of our special education case managers. It does include professional development, and there is a benefit to us to use it for 3 years rather than doing the annual subscription as we've been doing. Recommend come to the next meeting for action after I answer any questions.
Thank you. Sonia, if you'll just let me know if we have any public comment, so I don't have to ask every time. Are there any comments, questions on this item? Any objection to having this item return under consent on May 11th? Okay, hearing no objections, this item will return to our May 11th meeting under consent. And just a reminder to all of our board members, if any item does return under consent, if you want to pull it, you can just let me know in advance, or when I call that item on the agenda, you can also pull it from there for further discussion or questions. Our next item is M3, receive information regarding overnight field trips and day trips over 150 miles. Assistant Superintendent Davis?
Thank you. Attached are 2 field trips that are preliminary should any of our teams place into state or regional championships. This is something we typically do in a normal year. Bring these forward to you so you will see the appropriate coaches are identified. We will certainly keep you updated should any of these groups travel in our weekly updates to you. Do recommend this item return to the next agenda for action so our teams can win and participate.
Thank you. Any discussion by the board? Any objection to have this item return under consent? This item will return under consent. Item M4, receive information regarding the selection of school colors and mascot for Central Online Homeschool. Assistant Superintendent Davis, And Mr. Perez, who is our areas.
I am going to cover
Present,
for
okay.
him. He is out this evening. So I am excited to bring to you the colors and mascots for our newest school, the online homeschool. You will see an attachment to this of what the students participated in as per board policy. This is something that the students work with the principal on. After placing Principal Bolger on the campus, she went right to work on this. There were two, as you can see on the mascots, there were two mascots that were of interest, and staff looked at the options for both of them and the appropriateness of both of them and how they would fit the campus vision and mission, and are recommending that the Central Online Homeschool become the Owls. And school color was also voted on by students, and the recommendation is the number 1 item, which is a forest palette. They took a look at what other colors are currently being utilized at all of the other schools. They wanted a unique look and feel. And you will see the close win was the first one, item 1, forest. And it also was reviewed by staff after to see how it would fit and work with the groups. And I think they're already planning some owl, Harry Potter themed events and activities. So they're very excited about
Awesome.
beginning to really develop that identity. So we do recommend this return to the next agenda for action after answering questions.
Thank you. Any discussion by the board? Any objection to have this item return under consent? This item will return under consent. Thank you. Item M5, receive information regarding requests for proposals for child nutrition services. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So we did our annual bids in this past month, and we have the results here. We had five requests for proposals, and they're listed there for the dairy products, commercial and USDA commodity processed food products, fresh bread products, paper and chemical products, and produce products. These are bids for next year for the 21-22 fiscal and school year, and the proposals were written to allow for 2 additional 1-year periods. The recommended bid awards are listed there. We have this as an information item tonight, but we are asking that it be placed on the May 11th board agenda for action. These are bids all within Fund 13, the cafeteria fund. So I would be happy to answer any questions. I also have Ms. Engel here tonight, our nutrition director, to help with any questions as well.
Thank you. I have a question. Can you just explain how this works, or how the super co-op JPA that we just approved under consent, like what's the relationship between these 2 items, if any? Because I was under the understanding that that would kind of eliminate having to go through the RFP process, which I seem to be incorrect.
Yeah, they are somewhat different. I'm going to have Ms. Engel come up since
Great,
she's
thank
here,
you.
and she can be very eloquent in explaining this as she works in the details of this year in and year out. But there she is. You can push the button.
Good evening. Yeah, if you can just turn on your mic.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So the difference between the super co-op is for the whole state of California, which we work with the USDA across the nation, and that's how we bring our commodities in. We decide all of our brown box, and like the governing council supersedes the entire state of California. And then as a school district, we have to go out to bid for ourselves to get the finished product in. Does that make sense?
It does,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments on this item? That was it. Thank you so much. Any objection to having this item returned under consent? Hearing none, it'll return, and we can have this item returned under consent, right? It doesn't require individual action? Okay.
Consent is fine.
Thank you. Item M6, receive information regarding district facilities master plan, Assistant Superintendent McLean. And before you get started on your presentation, I just want to remind the board, based on our request, we did ask that this item come to our general board meeting as an information item, and then it'll return for action. So go ahead, Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. And as we're getting started here, I'll just ask Mr. Martinez to make his way up to the front. I know there will maybe some questions on some of the items. So we did have our facilities master plan review back on March 16th, and we received input from the board, very good discussion that night, a lot of comments, and so we have a revised draft that's now being presented for further review and discussion. So the complete document is attached to the board item. We have provided the board with a handout of the pages that changed. There's about 8 or 9 pages. Really want to focus on the third page in your packet, which is page number 8, which lists the different phases of the projects. We can address any questions on the other pages, but let's start with the kind of the meat of the facilities plan here with the summary. And so, based on the board's comments, we phase 1 and phase 2 are as they were presented previously. With we've said from the last meeting that finishing the high school at Justin Garza High School is our priority. We're moving into the next phase, in a few months with the ball fields, visual and performing arts, and the pool as the next phase. And then following that, going right into the elementary school at Shields and Brawley. We have the Ag Labs at Central High West, the McKinley and Herndon Barstow mods. What changed based on the discussion at the last month was the real priority and emphasis on the West campus, the Central High School campus. So that was moved up in the queue to phase 3, which is a funded phase. We have bond funds that are planned for that phase. We have state matching funds that will be available. And then the other change as a result of our conversation was to in the list of phase 4 projects was to move the new elementary school at Sierra Constance up to the top of the list in phase 4, as well as the Teague Elementary modernization project up to the second place in that priority list for phase 4. So I would open it up to any questions from the board and Mr. Martinez, and I will answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Solis?
I'm looking at the map.
Your mic, please.
I'm looking at the map of the new elementary school at Shields and Brawley, and I don't know if this is the old map that was presented to the board before, but 2 concerns were brought up. Traffic caused by parent drop-off because the school's going to be fronting a residential area, and you were going to look at the parking lot design as well as the distance of the bus drop-off area that would be on Brawley, and how actually somebody was saying they walked it off and it's going to be a lot closer to to Shields than it appears on the map. Those were the 2 concerns that were brought up in the board last time. What have you found about those?
Good evening. So when we do schools like this, the city, they evaluate the traffic and they look at if there's going to be any major traffic impacts, and they require us to do some sort of mitigation for the traffic. As of now, the city hasn't said anything. They've approved our plan for this school and the traffic impacts from it.
I didn't understand what you just said. They have already approved it, or it's pending?
The city has approved the impact on the traffic, correct?
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Paul?
I don't know if I'm missing it. I haven't taken a careful look at this, but is there a plan for the Shields and Grantland property? What is the plan for that?
There's no plan as of now.
No current plan for
No.
it? Nothing projected? It's 40 acres, correct?
Shields in Grantland?
Yeah.
I think it's more like about 20.
Oh, it's about 20?
About 20, yeah.
Looks bigger now.
I'll double check it. I think
Yeah.
it's about 20.
Thank you.
No problem.
What was the intended purpose of that property when it was purchased? the Shields and Grantland?
Grantland. I'm not too sure the intended purpose at that time. As of now, I know that it houses duplication, so it was purchased for expansion for some sort of facility, whether it be for a district facility or a school facility. Can tell you what exact purpose was.
There was some discussion with Granville Homes, as it potentially could have served as the ponding basin for that development that's going in on Ashland and Grantland. But they've actually have already, I mean, they're gonna do the ponding basin within the development itself. There was some conversation about some type of land swap deal that was discussed, but it hasn't been presented to the board. And so, I mean, that was just a discussion that happened at some point that I've stumbled across. But we are in discussion with Granville currently. I mean, I've talked to Darius a couple of times regarding the elementary property in that development. And so, you know, whether that's on the Shields and Grantland property that we currently own, or whether that's going to be in the development, I think those are, you know, all viable options.
Thank you.
There's probably a significant difference in size between an elementary school and a 20 or 40 acre parcel though, correct?
Yeah, typically you want the elementary schools to be about 15 acres.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Our current, you know, parcel size has been about 10 acres for the elementary. I would argue that that's too small. We've already shared that sentiment with Darius, or, you know, Mr. Semi. And so, but yeah, it's 20 acres is a bit big, 15 acres is about right.
Yeah, CDE recognizes the minimum size as 10 acres. However, if we are going to choose to build a school on Shields and Grantland, we will need to cut in our own road and parking for traffic mitigation. The city more than likely will not allow us, since those are major arterial roads, will not allow us to do any type of bus drop-offs off of Shields or Grantland. So we'll need additional acreage to prepare for that.
Yeah, so what you're saying is there would have to be new roads and
Correct.
alignments, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the size, so that lot would be too big even with those changes?
Wouldn't necessarily be too big. Just depends on what the requirements will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
The state will only fund to a certain level, so if it's, you could break up the property and perhaps multi-use.
Yeah, and it depends on the future alignments, whatever roads are in there. If they decide it's going to be a major arterial road going through and we have to do single lane, double lane, kind of depends.
Got it, okay. Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Besides a 40,000 square foot warehouse, that 20 acres is underserved. But with that being said, had we, I'm just joking. Had we considered utilizing that property to do some either hybrid farming with the ag department or a pistachio orchard or cherry orchard or something to incorporate some revenue on top of being able to utilize it to teach our ag students? That you know, we do a lot in that, you know, obviously the tree orchards, and so with pistachios and well, almonds have kind of bottomed out. But with that being said, couldn't we incorporate that land for that purpose at a relatively low rate and really maximize it to utilize it? And if our ag department is not thinking or going down this path in terms of hybrid farming, you got to have a multi-year yield with a smaller piece of property for less water usage. I hope we're teaching that over there, because we've been teaching farming the same way we've been doing farming for the last 100 years. We're not going to have enough water. We're not going to have enough space. So this hybrid farming is taking off very quickly. So I'm just thinking, are we thinking about those types of things? And if we has there been discussion around those things? Because I think it's imperative. Proximity-wise, it's not too far away from the central campus and not too just down the road from the east campus. You know, just something to think about or contemplate. I mean, it's sitting there doing anything, nothing. So, and it's been several years. And of course, out of sight, out of mind. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the district. It's not like we're sitting there thinking about, oh, what are we going to do with that 20 acres that's sitting out there? But the reality is, I mean, it's there and we could utilize it. I'm sure the ag department would love to utilize that land, especially being that we don't really have a purpose for it today and or, you know, what's the future hold.
Great points, Trustee Cervantes.
Oh,
And
even a
what-
broken clock's right twice a day. Every now and then I get a good one out. Yeah.
Trustee Paul?
I was just going to mention in concert with what Trustee Cervantes mentioned, there's other types of vocab, like I know that Trustee Chan has brought up the idea of a trucking vocational kind of a idea. So just wanted to add on. Thank you.
At any point, does this board have a conversation about what property we own that doesn't have any improvements and what we're doing with that? Because I know the facility plan doesn't include, unless I missed it, just identifying what other property we have that hasn't been designated for a specific purpose. Does it?
Want to comment?
No, the only other property would be the Shields and Grantland. Every other vacant property we own has a use.
It does?
Correct.
Okay. And do we have that documented somewhere? I don't know what they're being used for, and maybe I just...
The other future properties is for Shields and Brawley, and then is Sharon Constance, those two elementary schools.
okay. So they've been designated?
Correct.
So we don't have any other vacant properties that we have
That we
already
own, no.
designated? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And that land would be better served as even a research plot, agricultural research plot, to do studies with soil, seed, etc.
I have one more correction. There is a few other vacant properties, but it's one of them is for the district service center, and the other one is for soccer field. That's in conjunction with the whole educational center.
Do we have those identified
Yes,
in the facilities plan?
yes.
Okay, I'll look for that then. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, great, thank you so much. So this item will return, we'll have this item return under action unless there's a request to have it come back under consent. Okay. To our May 11th meeting, thank you. Our final information item is M7, receive information regarding change order number 12 for Justin Garza High School. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. Getting my paper straight here. So this is change order 12, increasing the contract amount on the project by $29,471. This is a 0.03% increase on a $105 million project. The overall increase on the original project amount for all change orders to date, we're at 1.27%, which is really good. So we are recommending this item be placed on the May 11th board agenda for action. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments on this item? What percentage of completion are we?
We are hanging around 87, 88%.
Are we still on schedule to complete on time?
For occupancy, we're looking like we are going to occupy a majority of the buildings. We're also working with the contractor to see if there's any lag and what we can do to work with them to make sure we get open for what we need.
So at a minimum, we're anticipating and putting some pressure if there are any lags.
We have a lot of pressure, yes.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions? Any objection to having this item return under consent? Okay, this item will return to our next agenda, next board meeting under consent. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Advanced planning, Superintendent Alvarado.
A month calendar is attached. I do want to remind the board that we do have a workshop scheduled for next Tuesday, 6:30 to 8:30. It is a governance 101 workshop. That'll be facilitated by Lozano Smith.
Correction, it's 6 p.m.
6
We're
p.m.,
scheduled to
6 to 8.
begin, yes. So we're scheduled to meet here at 6 p.m. Just for our board and for anyone who's watching, we will not have general comment. There will be an opportunity to comment on the item, but that training is really intended to provide us an opportunity to learn and discuss about our governance rules and any updates to the law. So if there are any questions, or if there is an issue with the 6 p.m. time, please let me or Superintendent Alvarado know before then, so we can see if we can accommodate.
Let's make sure we confirm that time, because I have 6:30 on my calendar, Ms. Lopez. Just make sure we have it sent out, we have the correct time.
Okay, thank you. And with that, additional information and closing comments. So are there any board members wishing to provide any closing comments? Trustee Chan?
Two quick comments. One, I just wanted to, again, just make sure our students, our families know, and although this has been ongoing, but again, I think it's fantastic that we're doing special vaccination events for our students on on May 1st and May 22nd. Please take advantage of that. Second thing I definitely wanted to make sure we talked about at tonight's board meeting is I'd be remiss if we didn't actually talk a bit about the Armenian genocide. This past week, actually just 3 days ago, on April 24th, such a cataclysmic event, the Metziagern or Hayot Tegespanutun, the Armenian genocide has not only shaped what occurred in the former Ottoman Empire, but also has had a resounding effect here in the Valley, and especially actually here on the West Side and Central Unified. I mean, we have a Klegan Stadium, we have a Soroyan elementary school, all that came about in some ways in terms of that related to that history. And it's refreshing to see that President Biden finally recognized the event. I've been in Yerevan where people have talked about Canutum or recognition. It's sad to see that Turkish continues to deny that event, but I think it's really important for those that care about human rights, those that care about freedom, and those that care about justice to make sure that we recognize those 1.5 million Armenians that passed away, the Assyrian population that was also killed during the Armenian genocide and Assyrian genocide. I think it's really important, especially for this area, and maybe that's something that we should actually bring annually, possibly as something that we a resolution that we recognize.
Thank you, Trustee Chan. Any other comments? Trustee Cervantes, was that? Oh, okay. Just making sure. And with that, our next meeting is our special board workshop, which will be held on May 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m. here. And following that, our next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 11th, 2021 with 6 p.m. for our closed session and 7 p.m. for our public session. We do not need to adjourn to closed session, and so our final item is adjournment. What are the wishes of the board on this item? I have a motion by Trustee Chan. I have a second by Trustee Brooks. All in favor, please say aye. I hear no objections, so motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Good night, everyone.